Us now is KenTimmerman, an acclaimed journalist, author, and also the president and CEO of the Foundation for Democracy in Iran. He was also a national security and foreign policy advisor board for President Trump in 2016. Ken, good to see you.
And Ken has a great new book out, too. It's called, and the rest is history, Tales of Hostages, Arms, Dealers, Dirty Tricks, and Spies. It's really incredible stuff. Great to have you with us, Ken. I've heard some of these stories directly from you at dinner before. They're all fascinating, and I highly recommend the book. We'll talk about it in a second. But I want to get back to the Rushdie attack, because according to the experts, there were signs of a guided attack. We know he had contact with the IRGC, and most people had probably forgotten about the fatwa on Salman Rushdie. But tell us what you think is actually going on here, and give us a little bit of historical context on the Salman Rushdie angle.
Well, first of all, your reporting has been very good, and the lead-in to this segment, very, very good. This fatwa was issued by Ayatollah Khomeini just months before he died in June of 1989 in retaliation for the satanic verses. I won't get into the theology of that. It's very interesting, though. The satanic verses invalidate Islam, and they're in the Quran, which is why no Muslim scholar wants to refer to them. Hadi Matar, the killer, the attempted killer here, he comes from a village in South Lebanon called Yarun. I was about 5 miles away from Yarun in 2006 for Newsmax, reporting on the ground during the Lebanon war in 2006 with Hezbollah. The founder, Lebanon's most notorious terrorist, Imad Bougnayeh, comes from a village just north of there called Bint Jbeil. He was killed in 2008. So this is something that has been going on for a long time. The Iranians have wanted to kill Rushdie for a long time. They've had a bounty on his head for many, many years. They have killed others in Europe. They have killed over 200 dissidents. They put bounties on heads of people like me because of my operations with the Iranian dissidents. And the most recent attempt to kidnap me was in January of this year. It was exposed by the Israelis a couple of months ago.
Wow. I mean, your career has been so fascinating, as well as you've sort of been at the forefront, Ken, of so many things. We also heard about the foiled plots to assassinate John Bolton, Mike Pompeo from Iran just last week. Clearly, the Biden administration still having communication with them, the JCPOA deal that many say, what are we doing even having these conversations with Iran over a nuclear deal?
Yeah, it's pathetic. It makes no sense whatsoever. The Iranians are demanding that we not only let go of the sanctions, that we take the Revolutionary Guards off the terrorism list, but they also want to make sure that a future President Trump cannot walk back the deal. The only way you can do that is if this is a treaty, and this treaty, it will never get passed as a treaty. Even Chuck Schumer opposes it.
Ken, we also got to talk about your book, but I want to ask you about Afghanistan as well right now, and this report coming out from Mike McCall and House Republicans. We talked a lot about this previously when it was happening. There were obvious signs there that the intelligence agencies warned the administration that something like this was going to take place in Afghanistan. And a year later, we see the Taliban celebrating in the streets. We see women's rights being completely wiped off of the map in Afghanistan. Here's Mike McCall on CBS's Face the Nation.
Problem was the White House and State Department putting their head in the sand, not wanting to believe what they were saying, and therefore not adequately planning. And I think, to your point, the women left behind is the worst of this entire story.
So we got Joe Biden on the beach, riding his bike. The Taliban are celebrating the streets of Afghanistan. Where do we go from here when it comes to Afghanistan?
Well, I'm glad. I hope Biden doesn't fall off his bike again. But look, this is a tragedy. We saw it coming. I spoke right here on this channel, I think with you, John, as this was going on. We should have kept Bagram Air Force Base. That's what the military was telling President Biden. We could have gotten our people out through Bagram. It is much more isolated. Instead, we used the public airport, the international airport in Kabul, where 13 Americans, soldiers, died protecting it. They died in a suicide bombing carried out by the Taliban, with whom we were supposedly negotiating. Look, one thing is absolutely crystal clear here. 1 year after the fall of Kabul and the rest of that country, is that the Afghan state, the Afghan government, is the Taliban. The two are one and the same. And people who try to differentiate between the two just aren't they have got their heads in the sand. The Taliban is the Afghan state.
Ken, just about 30 seconds here, but you have a great new book coming out, and the rest is history, Tales of Hostages, Arms Dealers, Dirty Tricks, and Spies. What are we going to find out here?
Well, you're going to find out how I became a hostage, an arms dealer, and an Israeli spy. And all of those things actually happened, very unusual for a journalist. And the Israeli spy part is particularly interesting. It had to do with liberating a hostage. We didn't get him out, but boy, we certainly tried. Mossad safe houses, counter surveillance, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like a fascinating read. KenTimmerman, thank you so much for joining us today to discuss all of these stories happening. Appreciate it. And make sure you get a copy of his book. It is coming out August 30th, folks. Thanks so much.
Everyone would know about KenTimmerman, too, if he weren't a conservative, because that's basically why he's not a mainstream journalist anymore. He asked some questions that you shouldn't have asked a long time ago. Fascinating guy, and just great to talk to him around a dinner table, too. So many stories. So read the book. Coming up now, we're going to talk about